Peptides need fuel, right? They're not magic. They don't create something from nothing. Let's kind of break down 7 common reasons peptides start and stall, maybe, or don't fail or don't work for you as well in midlife women specifically, and exactly what to do instead. Hey there, sister. Welcome back to the Period Whisperer podcast. I'm so glad that you are here. How are you feeling in your body today? Are you feeling ready for some answers? Maybe some troubleshooting because you've been stuck even though you're doing all of the things? I'm excited today to talk about something that I think comes up constantly in my inbox. We're bringing things back. This whole month has been about peptides, and then we're going to move on. Next month, you will see we're going to talk about a whole new topic and deep dive into something that I think you're going to be very appreciative of because I hear this from you all the time. But at the beginning of February, in my solo cast, we talked about kind of my 6-month journey with peptides, what I'd seen in my clients, why I am loving them and appreciating them. We also talked about cycling them, how long you need to be on them, because I think that's such a common question. So if you haven't learned about peptides, I did an entire series in November about them. If you like, including client wins and messages from my actual clients. If you don't know much about them or what they are, go back and check that out. And if you've been following along here in February, then we talked a lot about cycling, how long we need to be on them for. And then I took a week off because I had a lot of things on my heart and my mind, and we needed to talk about the state of the world and what was going on and how I'm handling that and how I encourage you to handle that. But we're bringing it back up to close out February and talk about, as I said, the thing that I hear the most in my inbox and my DMs and my client calls with regards to peptides. And that is, Bria, I'm on peptides, but I don't really feel anything. Or Bria, I just don't think that they really work for me. Or I'm feeling this problem and this problem and this problem. And I get that. Like, I think we invest in something, we have hope in something to try it. You're hearing people like me talk about peptide therapy and all of the awesomeness that it can be. But before you decide that it's not for you or that it's not working, or maybe that peptides are a scam, and I do think that there are some scams out there, so we want to be warned. I want to be really gentle but clear in saying this. Most of the time when I dig in with my clients, so I don't get a chance to dig in with people who randomly DM me the same, but when I do ask a couple of questions, it's not the peptide. It's the context you're using the peptide in. So today we're going to do a little audit for you, for any of you who are on peptides or who are learning about peptides. And by peptides, I mean, it could be anything. The most common peptides I'm hearing about people being on outside of my practice are going to be the GLP-1 weight loss peptides. I don't hear a lot of people reaching out outside of my practice on other peptides, although I do have some people that message me and say, I'm on this one, and this one, but this is happening, Bria. What's going on? Could it be the peptide? It's challenging to give a quick answer, but I'm always finding that I'm answering questions with questions. Well, have you looked at this? What's going on here? There's always more to the picture, right? But I want to dive into this and try to give you guys some answers. So whether you're on them, whether you are thinking about getting on them, if you're working with someone like me, you might be considering more exciting peptides that I think there's some amazing ones out there, like NAD, which is my favorite, that helps so much with cellular energy and brain health and just that fog that we feel like we're walking through, even if we're doing all of the things. Or the healing peptides, or the immune system peptides, or the muscle building peptides that really help our whole body feel better. The peptides that really get me the most excited for my own health are the longevity peptides, the ones that are helping us age better, the ones that are giving us more energy to live the life that we want to live. And I do feel very strongly that they are often a good possibility for most people, but there's a lot of things we need to know. So today we're going to do a little loving audit. We're going to talk about these peptides and kind of the big mistakes that we need to avoid, or the things that keep us stuck, without shame, without blame, just clarity. Because I know I love a good audit episode. Like, I love when people are like, don't do these things, do these things. I'd like some clarity. And honestly, I think your body does too, right? So again, if you've been trying them, thinking about trying them, whether it's the weight loss peptides, whether it's one of the hundreds of other amazing vitality peptides and healing peptides that are out there, let's kind of break down 7 common reasons peptides start and stall, maybe, or don't fail or don't work for you as well in midlife women specifically, and exactly what to do instead. So, first and foremost, you're going to hear me say this again and again with a lot of things, but I'm going to say it again and again because it's so important to hear it. The big reframe before we start is that peptides don't override physiology, they amplify it, right? So, if the foundation is shaky in your body, peptides don't fix that. Neither do bioidentical hormones. Things don't fix if the foundation is shaky or the pathway is not correct in the body. They actually expose it. I think bioidentical hormone replacement is a great example of this. If you're having detoxification issues and you're not feeling well, and you put more hormones in the picture, it actually brings that problem to the surface and things will start feeling worse. Maybe you'll deal with more anxiety. Maybe you'll gain a little bit more weight when you're on that bioidentical hormone. Same thing with peptides, right? If you are having digestive issues and your gut's a little wonky and you go on a GLP-1 that does slow that gastric emptying, you're going to start to have more gut issues, maybe more bloating, maybe more gas, maybe some acid reflux, things like that. We got to fix that underlying issue. Okay, so let's get into the big mistakes. Mistake number 1, poor sourcing. Yeah, it matters. Where you get your peptides from matters. So I'm going to be a little spicy here about this. If your peptides come from a random social media group that you find, if they come from my cousin's friend sells these situation, or a place where quality testing is vibes based, like you haven't actually looked at the research there. Maybe it's a gray market peptide, not saying that they're all bad. I'm just saying we need to be really aware of where things are being sourced, where we are buying things. And I think this is particularly happening more outside of the US. We are seeing more ability to order peptides through medical channels here in the US, but outside of the US, not so much. That being said, even inside of the US here, we're doing this stuff through telehealth. So, how deeply are people looking at your health? You really have to be responsible for your own health when you're going to test out something like peptides. So, if this is you, if you're getting peptides from any of these places, I really think we need to talk a bit. Quality matters, period, right? More than what you're taking. We need to have a good quality. There's a huge difference, between, I don't know, leggings you can buy on Amazon and Lululemon leggings, for example, right? How they shape your butt, how they hold, how long they last. Same goes for things like peptides. We need to make sure the quality, the testing matters, because low quality peptides degrade really quickly. They don't signal correctly. They create inconsistent results. And sometimes they do absolutely nothing. And then, of course, as women, we think it's my fault. I'm doing something wrong, or I guess peptides don't work. But no, that's not what's actually happening here. You just hired movers who never really showed up properly, right? You paid for something that was kind of empty. On top of that, I do feel like as a practitioner, I need to address what is making me a bit uncomfortable about peptides, which is this idea of selling them through friends. And although I am all for hearing what my friend is using, she loves, and testing it out because that's a great referral, I think this is a little different level, and just buying it because it worked for your friend or just buying it because your friend loved it should not be the reason you go. We do need to do more research on ourselves and understand, is my body ready to receive something like peptides or hormones? Same with hormones, right? Hormone replacement. Just because, progesterone and estrogen worked really well for your friend, or, a testosterone pellet like changed their whole life and libido, does not mean it's going to work that way for you, because the system of your body is different. It's been impacted by the last 40 whatever years of your life, which is different from the last 40 whatever years of their life and your genetics. So how we source, where we get it from, who we're talking to about getting these things matters. And I don't want that to scare you. I just want that to help you be more on top of things, more aware. Okay, so mistake number 2. You skipped minerals and gut work. I guess I already talked a bit about gut work, but I'm going to talk about this one again because this one is huge. Peptides are signals, right? But signals still require raw materials to get things done, right? So if you're low in magnesium, in sodium, in potassium, in trace minerals like manganese or iodine or selenium, if your vitamin D is off, if your B12 is off, your cells literally cannot respond properly. And that makes it so challenging for the peptide to even do its job in your body. And if you add gut dysfunction onto that, now you're absorbing less, you're inflamed more, and you're wondering why nothing sticks, right? So here's the truth. You cannot peptide your way out of mineral depletion or gut chaos, right? Peptides are not the first domino. They're the amplifier. We need to do this underlying work. And I tell you this so lovingly because I want you to put the work in order. You're going to get the amazing results that you deserve. And let me be clear, you absolutely can feel amazing. I believe at just about any decade of your life, as long as we do the real work in the real order. So we have to do that deep inner root cause work first, and then we can get to peptide therapy. All right, mistake number 3, undereating and underfueling. Listen, I'm going to say this with love because I have a lot of amazing, inspiring, driven, accomplished women that I get to work with who are not eating enough. If you are eating like a stressed bird and expecting peptides to build muscle, burn fat, stabilize hormones, allow you to sleep, you are asking way too much of them, right? When you are not eating enough, that is a very unsafe place for your body. It is going to feel scared. If you were feeling scared, like you don't know how you're going to survive, how do you think you would sleep at night? Not very well, because you'd be on alert. Like if you're in an unsafe place, you don't sleep as well, right? If you're in an unsafe place, you're kind of frozen. You get a little stuck, right, in the body. Midlife women often undereat protein. We talk a lot about that, but how much protein you need is really going to depend on you. It's not a number that one of us can give you. Yes, it's great to shoot for 100 grams of protein in a day, but only you will know what that is based on, I ate this amount of protein. How long did it help me feel full and satisfied for? What else did you eat with that protein, right? There's a lot, there is an element of us needing to pay attention to our own body, not for long, for a couple of weeks of food tracking to be able to know this. Most women often undereat calories and over restrict carbohydrates. It doesn't matter who you are. As a woman, your thyroid needs at least 100 grams of carbohydrates per day in order to be optimized and function. It's going to get really pissed at you and shift into like sluggish, slow thyroid conversion if you are not eating enough carbohydrates most days, right? And then we do these things and we wonder why recovery is trash, right? Why we can't work out without feeling absolutely exhausted the next day, why we can't wake up with energy. Peptides need fuel, right? They're not magic. They don't create something from nothing. And although I will tell you, when you are in a good state and you use peptides, they kind of do feel a little magical. They do. I mean, the amount of energy I was able to benefit from, how much better my sleep got from, how I feel in my body feels a bit like magic after the amount of supplements I've taken in my life, but they're not magic. They just work best in a body that is optimized first. They don't create something from nothing. So remember, undereating equals peptide sabotage. Okay, mistake number 4. Maybe you're training like it's 2004. Again, this is where I lovingly take away your cardio bunny card. I am amazed at, every day, if you are learning about hormones, it is very difficult to open up your social media and not see someone promoting heavy weightlifting. We do know this is really important. If you are doing endless cardio still, sister, it better be because it sets your soul on fire. And for some people, it does, not for me. But for some people, running is just like in their soul. It makes them feel really good. Wonderful. Not the best thing for your body right now, which means we need to support it properly. So work with an expert on that. But if you're doing endless cardio, if you're lifting too light, if you're avoiding intensity, If you're never challenging that muscle, your peptides are not like it's like they're screaming into a void, right? Depending on the peptide. So if we're looking at the muscle building peptides or the weight loss peptides, we want to be protecting with muscle. So we need to be doing the right things like it's 2026, not like it's 2004, right? Growth, recovery, and metabolic peptides respond to stimulus. And walking alone is not going to be that stimulus. You need more workouts. You need better signals. Lift heavy, rest properly. I'm going to say that one again, rest properly, and repeat. What I love about peptide therapy is when you are not looking to them for desperation, when you've done the underlying work, you're working with a practitioner, and we layer in peptide therapy strategically, then for me, for example, is I love to use the growth hormone releasing peptides during a 3-month block when I have the capacity and the time to be lifting heavier. Not just randomly, I will do it specifically during that time. So I know my sleep is supported. I know my muscle is supported. I'm going to be hungrier. So I'm going to need to eat more during that time. You need capacity and time to do these things, right? If you are wanting to, to lose some fat, like you're stuck in a bit of insulin resistance and you're interested in a microdose of tirzepatide, for example, wonderful. That's great. Do it during a 3 to 6 month block where you can prioritize the foundations of your health, where you are not going to be drinking alcohol or tempted to drink alcohol, where you are not going to be tempted to be eating a bunch of junk and sugar, where you are on top of these pieces, where you have time to exercise and work out, right? We want to support it, not just before the peptide, but during the peptide. Mistake number 5, sleep and stress are going to block everything, right? Let's get honest here. If you're sleeping 5 to 6 hours a night, scrolling on your phone before you go to bed, watching things that stress you out, and I can see this, I have to tell you, I'm starting to feel like reading labs for people is almost making me feel like a bit of a psychic. When I look at people's labs, for the most part, especially if we've spent some time working together, I can see your habits in your labs, which is what is so powerful about having your labs run with the right practitioner who's actually going to read it. So, side note, if you have had labs run like a Dutch or a GI map or an HTMA or blood work, and no one has sat down and actually gone through and helped you understand it, you need a different practitioner. And I'm going to be sassy a bit about that because there is so much power in understanding your own labs, right? When you understand why a marker is what it is, what it's tying to in your symptom, what created it to be there in the first place, it becomes a heck of a lot easier to be compliant because you're like, oh, yeah, I got to take my minerals. I'm just not absorbing my water. I can see it right there. Or, oh, yeah, I really shouldn't be watching or scrolling stuff late at night because I can see my cortisol elevate right there, right? It really helps us stay more compliant. So if you are scrolling until midnight, if you are living in fight or flight, if you are calling exhaustion normal, and here's a good way to tell that. If you can't sit and be still without feeling like you need to do things, I'm talking to you. If you feel like you are only worth something if you get something done, if you're annoyed at other people for resting while you're doing things, I'm talking to you right now. Your nervous system is not in repair mode. It's in survival mode. And survival mode doesn't care about muscle tone or fat loss or glowy skin or healthy hair. No peptide can outsignal a stressed nervous system. So if sleep isn't improving, nothing else will stick. It is going to be very hard to lose weight if you are not sleeping because of your central nervous system. It is going to be very hard to build muscle. It is going to be very hard to have happy, healthy, glowy skin, to, have a supported immune system, to have a brain that fires on all levels. Okay. So we need to look to this, to creating sleep habits and not using peptides to try to cheat. That's not what they're there for. They're here to help you do what you're doing, but better. You know what I mean? And I kind of love that because there's no cheating in this. There's a cost of doing business with everything. And if you try to cheat the system with peptides, that's when we see results that don't work. That's when we see people that look unwell. That's when we see a lot of negative side effects. Okay. Peptide therapy is for people who are doing the work. And I kind of like that because I like when hard work gets rewarded, right? That we don't just get to win because we know people or we're rich or whatever, right? Okay. Mistake number 6, dosing and timing errors. Now, this one is sneaky and it's going to depend a lot on the specific peptide that you are on. But here's what is really important for you to know: more is not better, random is not better, copying someone else's protocol is not better. Common issues I see are dosing too high too fast. Now, let me be clear: if you are sourcing your peptides appropriately, they should come dosed, right? By a dosing, prescribing practitioner. Those are the safest peptides that we know, right? Where someone else is looking at you, looking at, your weight, your height, your cardiovascular markers, for example, and then appropriately dosing something. But we can start lower. You can always start lower, right? Low and slow is one of my favorite sayings that I learned through peptide certification. So dosing too high too fast is always going to cause some problems, doing it at the wrong time of the day. So there are many peptides that do impact your cortisol a little bit. One of my favorite peptides that I talk about all the time is NAD+, which is really a coenzyme, not a peptide, but it works so beautifully, but it creates energy. So you want to be taking it first thing in the morning. Likewise with the growth hormone releasing peptides that are amazing for sleep and libido and vitality and muscle building, best to be taken at night. So we need to make sure we understand how things are. And again, when you are sourcing appropriately, those instructions should be there for you. Another big mistake I see is when we're stacking too many peptides at once. Listen, like any supplement protocol, you really should be taking your time with one at a time to know how it responds for you. Now, with supplements, you might give, taking magnesium 2 or 3 days before you take another supplement to see how it works. But with peptides, you really should give them 2 or 3 weeks before you add in another peptide. How do you know which one's working? How do you know which one doesn't make you feel very good? We need to give it that space. And really, I don't think we need to be taking 10 at once. Take 1, for goodness sakes. Maybe take 2, 3 if you've been doing this for a little while, once you've cycled them all in. Taking them one at a time helps us understand what works best for us. Not allowing adaptation, right? Your body likes rhythm. It likes consistency. It likes predictability. And peptides work best when the timing matches your biology. So learning that information, grabbing the ultimate guide to peptides in perimenopause, reaching out to a practitioner to work with on this, doing your research, I think is really important here. Remember, peptides are biohacking level stuff. I think they're amazing tools. They're new age tools for a new age world like AI, but we still need to make sure we are educating ourselves appropriately and advocating for ourselves. Okay, here we are. Mistake number 7. You haven't revisited your labs. This is where my practitioner heart really kicks in, right? Peptides aren't working. We need to ask, is cortisol dysregulated? Are hormones optimized? Is thyroid conversion supported? Are detox pathways moving? Are minerals actually depleted? Because again, peptides don't replace labs. They don't override dysfunction. They don't fix blind spots. Sometimes the answer isn't a new peptide, it's better data, right? A big part of being the CEO of your own body, and that is what I want for you. I want you to not necessarily have all the answers, but act like a CEO where you are strategic, right? You're thinking about the options, you're consulting your team, you're making a plan, and then you're taking action, right? We want to consider what our options are. We want to look around the field this way and make sure we have as much information as we can to make an educated decision on where we're going, not over information. But CEOs are strategic, right? They are going to consider the other impact and the other people that are around to help. So for you and your body, that's making sure everything is in working order. That's starting kind of from the ground up, knowing where do I want to go, but where am I right now? And that's one of the most powerful things about running your labs that you cannot get with traditional conventional medical labs. You need to look to functional labs for what is going on more deeply. This is how I'm able to help my clients so much more, is by looking deeply into the body and connecting the dots of where this loss of function is so we can start to rebuild that foundation of health and then be able to use amazing things like peptides, which are so fun. So listen, sister, here's the big takeaway for you. If peptides aren't working, it doesn't mean your body's broken. It doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It doesn't mean that peptides aren't for you. It usually means that the foundation needs some love and attention, that the signal needs context, and that your strategy needs some refinement. Peptides are powerful, but they're not standalone heroes, right? They work when sleep is supported, food is adequate, minerals are repleted, movement is intentional, stress is addressed. Like labs guide these decisions to do that. If you do anything for your health in 2026, I really would encourage you as a woman to start to save money for or invest in doing some functional lab work with a practitioner, running the GI map, running your Dutch test, running either an HTMA or some blood work to get minerals so that you have a clear picture of where you are and what it feels like right now. Then every year, consider running that for yourself again. It is how I've been able to stay optimized and healthy and very quickly get back on track by using tools like peptides for the last 7 years now that I've been working on my hormones this way since I had my kind of hormonal tank. Actually, yeah, 7 years it's been. So this is really my 8th year where I have been optimized. And that is because every year I look at these labs, I run these labs for myself and I see where I am, where I'm going, what I need to work at. So I'm never any longer operating from a debt space in my body and energetic debt. I'm always operating worst case scenario from like a 7 and I need to get back up to an 8, 9, and 10. Okay. If you are listening and thinking, oh, I see myself in at least 3 of these, good. That means we found leverage, right? You don't need to quit your peptides. You don't need to panic. You need a smarter setup. And that's what I do. So if you want help auditing your protocol, foundations, or your labs, you know where to find me. You can swipe up and book a free call. We want to stop guessing, stop stacking randomly, right? Start supporting your body like it deserves. And if you really just want to dig a bit deeper into peptides, then I want you to click the link below and grab the ultimate guide to peptides for perimenopause. I cannot wait for you to feel the best you can in your body. But before you feel the best, we gotta be the third little pig that builds their house out of bricks, right? Not straw. We need to build slowly and strategically. Okay, sister. Now you know way more about peptides, I hope, this month. I'm looking forward to diving into some really great content. So come back next month and next week for some more amazing tips on how to be more in your life and not just less on a scale. We'll catch you in the next episode.